Tesla CEO Elon Musk has sold $8.4 billion of the electric car maker's stock just days after securing his $44 billion deal to take control of Twitter.
A lot of money being thrown around.
Yeah.
Those filings do not disclose the reason for the sale, but Musk appears to be raising the funds to buy the social media platform. The sale comes as shares of Tesla plummeted amid investor concern Musk would offload stock in the company to help fund the deal. He posted on his newly acquired platform after the filing at the Securities and Exchange Commission became public. Now, Musk says he has no further plans to sell shares of Tesla.
Well, CBS News tech reporter Dan Patterson joins us now for more on this. Thanks for being here. A lot of people were questioning, how the sale of stock, the buying of stock were all sort of encompassed in this announcement over Twitter. But this seems to be against what folks originally thought was going to play out. They thought he would buy his own stock. So, what's going on here?
Well, there are two gigantic companies at play, and they kind of feed off of each other, kind of like a seesaw, right? So Tesla has been dogged in recent months with these recall warnings. They recalled over 60,000 cars between China and the U.S., about 14,500 cars in China, the rest in the U.S. over, get this, software bugs that prevented the correct speed from showing. This comes after just a few weeks ago, they had to recall another 7,000 cars here in the U.S. after the airbags failed to deploy. So, there's been all these fears about Musk, pulling out of Tesla or selling his shares in Tesla. The real concerns with Tesla have been about the safety and the quality of the build and the software.
He told bankers, Elon Musk, that he would be focused on Twitter's bottom line. That would be his priority. He also floated the idea of cutting jobs, cutting costs. Not a great way to win favorites at your new job. But a lot of employees have voiced concerns since the sale over this. What do you think we're going to see here as Musk takes over?
So employees have voiced a number of concerns, as well as the general public. A lot of people have been worried that he might fundamentally alter the platform. But right now, at least, it seems as though he is concerned about the bottom line. So we could see some changes in terms of the features and functionality, but it's far more likely that we see Musk really double down on the service in terms of its profitability, because he has sunk so much of his cash and equity into the company. It would be pretty hard for him to ignore the things that really matter on Twitter, which is the advertising cash and the subscription revenue.
It is a business at the end of the day.
Yeah. Right. Well, almost 90% of Twitter's revenue comes from advertising. Musk announced yesterday in a variety of ways to boost cash flow for Twitter, including monetizing tweets. Really?
It's going to cost you.
Yeah. And a potential subscription service. Are we getting any indication of how he might implement these changes? And do you think Twitter users would pay for something like that?
Well, did you know Twitter already offers a subscription service?
No.
Right, exactly. It's called Twitter Blue. It launched last year. It's $3 a month, and it gives you a couple insights into how your network is sharing information, who is sharing what, and then some design customization features. You can also set your avatar to be an NFT. Now, maybe there's a reason this service hasn't taken off. It could be that this feature offering just isn't compelling. Musk has said he would change some of these things. But what we could really see, there are these fears that Donald Trump could or could not come back to the platform. But what he's most likely to do is boost engagement. So not just with Trump, but other banned users. He wants to see people using the site. Daily and monthly active users have to go up. That means that the people who are already on the platform also have to be engaging more. At the end of the day, it really is about revenue, and he's going to get that revenue in two places: advertising and subscriptions.
Yeah, I think keep in mind, it's not the most popular form of social media out there. It's like, it pales in comparison to like Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, a lot of people look for less Twitter, not more Twitter. It'll be interesting to see what he does to try to attract some people to the platform. Dan Patterson, thank you.
Good to see you.